Well, hello, my name is Brandon Boland. I'm a teacher at Westwood Middle School.
And I'm Michelle O'Neill. I'm a teacher at Rawlings Elementary.
And we're excited to be here with Ms. Diyonne McGraw to hear a little bit about your process and being elected for the school board. We're with Teachers for Change. We just want to hear a little bit what you have in mind, especially from the teacher's perspective in some of our questions. But to start things off, we want to know, what are your main goals to improve the school district overall for teachers and for students?
Okay. I'm so happy for this opportunity to be here with you as far as Teachers for Change. And three of the things I definitely going to concentrate on. One, for our students, reading and comprehension skills task force. And that will include our teachers and whoever else is necessary to be on that particular team. Because if you look at our data, that's one of the reasons I'm running. I am concerned about us continuing to have an achievement gap of 45 to 49% for the last 5 years. We cannot continue. We know if you can't read, it's a struggle. It's a struggle, and so we need to, make that change. The other thing is, for teachers, you all need more support. We need to look at salaries. I'm thankful for the $500 million that the governor has put in place, but we need to have you all to the table to make sure that happens. A task force with the union, as well as with teachers, because you're the ones in the trenches, and I think a lot of times we forget about that. Also, my thing is, every child is not going to college. Every child's not going to college. And that will help with behaviors if kids have more hands-on activities. So I think if you have more than CTE and trade, right now with our CTE and trades, it's more for rigorous courses for kids who are considered level 3. What about that kid who's dealing with a lot of trauma in their personal lives? They need help, their families. You gotta remember, their parents are a product of the same system that has failed them. And so trades, for those kids who may not want to go on to college, that is extremely important as well. And for teachers as a whole, we have a culture problem here in Alachua County. The entire culture needs to change. When I've spoken with teachers, the morale is low. And if you are stressed about coming to work on a regular basis, that affects how you work with your teachers. And that's extremely important to me. I've been in this system, volunteering since 1992 when I arrived in Gainesville, before I had children. My children went to Norton, worked up through Westwood, and then they split off. One went to PK, the other went to Gainesville High School, and I currently have a daughter now that's at PK. But I can tell you, being a volunteer in this school system, those kids and teachers who have major education, they have a lot of struggles. I'm okay. My daughter was summa cum laude. I have two things. I call my daughter summa cum laude. I call my son thank you laude. Because every child is different. And so what we have to understand is we have to meet families where they are, but we also need to make sure we teach support our teachers, especially what I've noticed, professional with classroom management. And I think in the first 5 years of teachers' experience, you need support. Who is your mentor? But also, who at the district level can come in and provide the professional development and training? If not, let's bring other people in. Also, within your teachers, since I've been doing my listening tour since last May, I have met so many teachers and administrators who really want to make a difference. But because of the culture that is here, we all know what the culture is, those things can happen if we change the culture, and that's one of the main reasons I'm running, because I think I'm part of the solution to the issues that we continue to have.
Great, thanks for sharing that. How do you plan to close the achievement gap between Black students and white students across the whole district?
Well, there again, I think the first thing we have to do, because the achievement gap, it closes by reading. I serve on the Alachua County School Board's Equity Advisory Committee. I'm one of the community members, and I have told them, after doing my research, when you look at the National Educational Assessment, Mississippi was dead last. I got on the phone. I had a conversation. I did research with other leaders, educational leaders across the country. How they turned Mississippi, I'm speaking of, how they turned it around. Reading is key. If you cannot read, so that means that we need to go through every school. We need to identify every child that's struggling in reading. I've even looked at some of the curriculums that you have in the school system. If they're not strong in phonics, then that's a struggle. Kids need to be able to recognize words that they don't know and identify them. But part of us doing it, we don't have to do this by ourselves. You need to pull that task force together.
All right. Ms. McGraw, what is your plan to address racial disparity in magnet programs? As in, how can we provide access to quality educational programs like those in magnet programs to students who might actually be zoned to those schools as well?
Well, the first thing we have to do is admit there is a problem. We have a huge problem with racism here in Alachua County. And then we need to put I would say, a team of teachers as well as administrators and your equity director. You need to pull all those kids that you know, because you're working in the trenches every day. You know what kids are doing well. And it's about providing opportunity, but that is something from leadership on down. First of all, you have to have a board who believes in racial equity, because equity is making sure, equality, you're making sure you provide opportunity. Equity is making sure everything the students have what they need. However, you got to have a board who first believes in it. I'm an honest person, but one of the things is we as teachers need to be finding out when we do testing and when you have students to perform, to give them opportunity. Because one of the things I was concerned about with Abbott, we push for that. However, you don't put kids in programs that are level 1 as far as FSA, if that's what you're using to guide as far as testing. You put them in these advanced programs and then you don't support them. Now, and I know for a fact, I've had some families I've had to help recently, before COVID, their kids had to be removed from some of our advanced programs because they didn't make it through the entire, couldn't make it through the entire school year with our rigorous nursing program. Mm-hmm. So the school would get points, or the district would get points for having kids with the AVID program. But what happened to that child? We just traumatized that child. So we have to get with an equity, look at our equity plan, because it's about looking at the child from a holistic standpoints, but also we need to bring the teachers and other people in our school who've tested these children and say, hey, this child needs an opportunity, and then make sure we provide the support that they need.
So this is from a teacher in a particular school who says every school has struggling students who need support. Mm-hmm. Our school just lost its Title I funding, but we have the same pocket of kids who need that extra support. Mm-hmm. How will you fight for those kids who aren't necessarily at struggling schools, but who have the same demographics as those who are?
First of all, you pull out our magnet. I think about that all the time. You pull out our magnet schools. Our schools are struggling, period. Mm-hmm. And so my leadership, what I've been doing since 1992, I've been going with parents, meeting. I want to make sure every principal identifies all of those struggling kids. We have a 27-page budget for $24 million. That's a sizable budget. And our focus has to be on kids. So there are changes that we have to make, then we have to make sure we make those to make sure our children are successful. Because my ultimate goal with the new leadership is to make sure we provide a world-class education. But we just need to, being involved, we need to make some changes to make sure it happens.
All right. Our next question is, what are some ways that you feel can help retain and recruit certified and experienced teachers to Alachua County while maintaining high standards and accountability for them, especially in our high-need schools?
Well, first of all, when you think about human resources, I think of a person that has great marketing skills, who understands policies and procedures. And in part of that department, to make sure we're working together, you need 2 recruiters. You need an African American or a minority recruiter to make sure that happens, along with another recruiter. Because what centers, we talked about this the other day, what makes me want to come to Alachua County and teach? And I'm hearing from teachers, what kind of incentives? Do you know, as a realtor, I would make sure part of that packet would be, if I'm going to be relocating to Alachua County, how do I help someone with their rent? I don't know if you all are familiar, some of you all were here when they hired Mike Powell to come in as an HR recruiter. He was on special assignment with Dr. Roberts was here. He had gone out with some of the apartment companies, got where they would give complexes. They would give 3 months free. I understand from talking to him, being in that role, the school system has some money where they can match and give you another 2 to 3 months. So if somebody had 3 to 6 months free coming in, also he had gotten restaurants to give you cards where you could take 50% off of your meals and things of that nature. And also some type of, if you wanted to work on your master's or do different research, here's some funding that could go with that. For you have to put a nice packet together. They have to be able to travel. That needs to be money to go and recruit. And sometimes when you do that, you may want to take 2 of your experienced teachers from elementary or from each level, elementary, middle, and high school, and you put a recruiting team together, including working. We got to work with the union to make sure we get your salaries where they need to be comfortable. Because I know at $38,000 a year, you know, and then by the time you pay taxes and insurance, you know, it's a struggle. We have a lot of teachers working more than one job, but we can do better. Because if I mentioned the other day, I'm reading this book to say when we must feed our teachers. I can't remember the title exactly. Or if we don't feed our teachers, they'll eat their students. I'm reading.
I love those ideas.
Okay.
And personally, I was just thinking about going back to school the other day.
Okay.
It was $51,000
Oh,
and
yeah.
I want to do a semester or a year, and I was like, there's literally no way.
Yeah. And one of the questions the other question I was asked, because they do it at other schools, is making sure sometime when there's a great conference for professional development, I ask teachers in my own conversations, when the last time you've traveled or been to some type of conference that will help you enhance your skills as a teacher here in Alachua County? They were like, well, do we have that? Do we have money? And so overall, we have to do a better job, and that starts with, I think that HR is so important, and when you promise, whatever you promise in the HR packet for someone who's coming, because somebody's uprooting their lives, they're coming here, and they need to be able to take care of themselves. We just have to do a much better job.
Right. So students, parents, and teachers really need school board members who aren't afraid of hard work, but who are also visible in the community and schools, not just in a boardroom.
Mm-hmm.
So school board members who are willing to go to schools and neighborhoods they might even feel like uncomfortable in.
Mm-hmm.
Like in your words, why is that important and necessary? And are you willing to be uncomfortable for all of Alachua County students?
Great question. Because when you think of Diyonne McGraw, as I said before, I've been volunteering in this community since 1992. As an African American, I've experienced a lot of racism. I've experienced being given a stigma or some type of reputation, you know, without it not even knowing me, especially working in the public school system. I have shown with many a times I would be uncomfortable. I want to give you an example when I was at Gainesville High School. At Gainesville High School, there was a young man, we're trying to get my own son out. There was another young man who was told 8 weeks before graduation he was not going to graduate. I was told that I needed to learn to just go with the flow, and I needed to stay out of it. And I said, well, you know what? I guess you won't be the one helping me, because this is somebody's child. Because if that child does not graduate, as a former probation officer, I know the direction that child could go. People told me I couldn't get it done. I continued to push, and now this is somebody else's child. My child was graduating as well. push for testing, went down to the Manning building and demanded that we look at this situation so we can make sure this young man graduated, because he had the opportunity to get a basketball scholarship to go on to a JUCO college. He needed that because school sometimes doesn't come to school kids easy who have learning disabilities. I made it happen. Prior to 8 weeks, I got the testing done. Then after we got the FCAT waiver, I made them go back and accommodate him. His parents, can you imagine as a parent, these were involved parents. We had told them back in 10th grade that I knew there was a type of learning disability. This young man had all D's and F's in reading 180 since 6th, 7th, 8th grade. So I asked the question, how do we get to high school and this happened? I said, oh, he's going to graduate. And he graduated. And he went on. So you talk about being uncomfortable, told that I was a troublemaker, called out of my name, but I'm about children. I was a part of the SAT committee. I was a part of the booster clubs. I have always supported every family who's reached out to me, whether they were black, white, or Hispanic, it didn't matter. I have a reputation for those who know me of meeting parents at Starbucks on 13th and 16th. Don't know them. I've had teachers call me and say, Ms. McGraw, can you go to a meeting with this young lady, especially those with learning disabilities, since I have group homes for developmental disabled. And this was put in me as a child, since childhood. Growing up in Memphis, Tennessee, my pastor was the last standing witness with Dr. King. And I was taught, you always fight for the least of these. My mother did this. I grew up as an only child. My mother did this. That's why immediately when I went to school in Tallahassee, Florida A&M, I was the community service rep for my sorority. We were always in the community. And immediately when I came to Gainesville, I joined several organizations here, got involved, and began to volunteer in the school system in 92. I didn't get married till 93 because my husband got a job teaching and coaching in Lake Butler, where they had not had a minority teacher in 15 years. And so, as you see, I'm not running for the money, I'm running for the cause, because I am concerned about, for the last 5 years, we've had an achievement gap of 45 to 49%. So I don't need the income. What I need is to make sure we have a world-class educational system where all children are successful, because if you look at our data, kids, you have only 29% of African American children on grade level. You have Latino, you have 45% of Latino children who are struggling in math and reading, the achievement gap. And then you have 84% of kids with disabilities who are not reading well or in math. And you have 26% for Caucasians. So nobody's at 100%. So we have a problem. And so, no, I'm not afraid to talk about it and have those tough conversations. It's about creating a culture of diversity. I'm black, you're white, you're Hispanic, it doesn't matter. But the diversity is extremely important, that we learn to learn each other's cultures, and it makes for a better place for all of us.
Great. Well, that actually goes well into our next question. What are your thoughts about school zoning? Would you consider rezoning schools to make them more diverse, or do you prefer neighborhood zone schools?
Well, if you look at right now, we're basically segregated. Our schools and the neighborhood schools are the ones that most of them are struggling, especially in East Gainesville. Zoning is not going to be an easy issue, but we're going to have that conversation about rezoning, because you have so much capacity in East Gainesville versus West. And so with the current situation, what are we saying? We want to continue to have a divide in our community. When you continue, when you talk about zoning and you don't want to address that issue, that means you're okay with how things are. You don't want to address black and brown and white and Latino kids going to school together, because there's a culture and there's a stigma that has been embedded in this school system that all the schools are bad at East Gainesville, because when you ask children, you talk to children, and all the schools are better in white schools. But one of the things is zoning is going to have to be an issue that we're going to have to discuss. I was just saying today, our zoning employee, she's retiring. She's retiring. She's going to retire. And right now, everybody's in an uproar about what we're going to do about zoning, because we know some of our schools, so we can't continue to feed private interests to keep going west, and the East schools continue to suffer. And so that's what leadership is about. Leadership is about accountability and responsibility, and that's going to be a conversation that we're going to have. And I know last time we had zoning, we had 24 members on that board years ago. That's too many people on the board to discuss zoning. But you need the right players, there again, at the table. And I think teachers need to give input, administrators, you all need to be a part of that.
Well, you touched on this a little, but do you think that systemic racism plays a role in public education, and if so, how?
Oh yeah, it's designed. Our system is a systemic racist system that has been designed by the powers to be, or the leaders. Because when you look at it, it's about, when I look at especially public education as far as our race is concerned, you have to me two sides. You have candidates who are fighting for change, and you have candidates who want things to remain the same, which equals economics and power. You know, as long as my backyard is okay, you know, as long as my household is okay. But systemic racism, it's because we're even though we are a district, we can strategically place programs, your magnet programs and things of that nature, to make sure you still remain an A. However, it's systemic in how we don't do recruiting at all to make sure kids have role models that look like them. We are systemic in all of the policies and the procedures, a lot of the policies and procedures, and that's part of our role as a school board member, is to make sure we're responsible for policies and procedures. We also have to have leadership from the administration that believes all children can learn. And we've been dealing with systemic racism for years. You know, even with, when you talk about PTA, I was a part of the PTA, but as an African-American parent, it was a struggle for me, you know, because if you have a meeting at 12 o'clock during the day, then most of your parents that are working, where is the opportunity for them to participate and come? And so your actions, when I look at the actions of racism, they're deep and they're deeply rooted, unfortunately, in Alachua County public school system.
All right, Ms. McGraw, you mentioned earlier about your holistic approach and view. What are your ideas on how to address behavioral needs, trauma, and social-emotional needs for students and supporting teachers in that process?
As a person who, I have a master's in education, varying exceptionalities. From Nova, I was a student right in Gainesville High School with Dr. Wise and some of the people who taught, and Dr. Tony Avila. And one of the things when it comes to behavior, I have group homes for intensive behavior group homes where I deal with substance abuse, mental illness, GPS monitoring, child pornography. I'm the last step before they go to the state hospital. Again, I'm a behavior management trainer. I train people in how to de-escalate situations. It's called safety care, and I go across the state taking the training and training other group home facilities. And part of the problem, you are dealing with a different generation of children, and also you have an evolution of young parents who've not had a lot of guidance, but also have also been failed by the current school system, public school system here in Alachua County. If a child is throwing a desk, there's something else that's going on. So my focus would be, there's going to be a behavior management team that's a part of Alachua County. Because I want teachers concentrating on teaching. That's what we have. And I know you all are struggling with a lot of behavior issues in the classroom. And part of that, as I say, the holistic approach, parent accountability, that's a huge piece. So that's why you have to have home liaisons who have those personalities, who are able to deal with that parent who struggles. As a former probation officer, part of what I had to do, I had to go out on Saturdays and Sundays and reach those parents who struggle, because they struggle with life, skill set, they struggle with, it could be transportation, there could be whatever trauma is going on in that home. And so children don't ask to come here. And if that's a connection to that child, the next safe haven is the Alachua County Public School System. So in the school system, we now have to have truancy officers who are able to build a relationship with our parents or that family member who takes care of that child. You have to have social workers in mental health. They may not be able to work 7 to 3. They may have to come in on the weekends, because we have to begin to meet families where they are. We're not going to embarrass those parents. If that, like what I do now, I have parent contracts with my parents. I don't care if my parent comes in, looking with a bonnet or whatever they have going on. Guess what? I'm going to bring that parent in. I'm going to treat them like somebody. I'm not here to judge that person. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to first listen and hear what's going on with them. I'm going to build that relationship, because I have their child who has some challenges, but doesn't mean that you can't turn that life around. So in today's picture of education, that's why I say it's community public education. You have to have social work, mental health. We have to identify those kids that are struggling, and they're going to have teachers, professional development. You may go through trauma, mental health training. You all need that, I think, to understand, so you can be able to recognize when a child is going through something. But I don't want us to get into the first thing we do is suspend that child. And you just say, and they become, and every time you turn around, and how your approach or how you talk to children who have trauma is different. Anytime I see a kid, I say, good morning. I don't get good morning, because my daughter's Maya. Good morning, Maya. How are you today? I'm not going to say, all right, Maya, don't you come in here and cause some problems today. Because now I don't know what that child has dealt with before they arrived at that school. And once we identify those children who are really struggling with trauma, now we have the social worker and the mental health person. It would be not a choice, because I've already built that relationship with that parent. Here's what you're going to have to do working as a parent, because we have to be able to teach, but you don't embarrass people. I don't believe in embarrassing parents, because some of them are embarrassed because of things they can't do. But when you meet families and then you support them, they'll start melting in your hand like butter. And that's a part of what I've done and been successful. So when you take time out to build relationships and get to know people and put the support, it makes better for all of us to come to work and not have to deal with the pressures of life. You already have to deal with kids. However, but if we have a school system that does the wraparound support, it's going to make a better world for all of us.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. McGraw. We really enjoyed hearing everything you had to say today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I would.